I'm not always too crazy about the binge model and stuff, having all the episodes, released at once. But I feel like with Fallout, this show, it worked pretty well just because of the fact that some of those middle episodes get kind of dry. So having all of this out at once, I thought it worked. I know some people don't care for that model, but I thought it worked well with this show. But certainly there is controversy with the Fallout show, but not for the reasons that I thought was, going to be the controversy. The thing is, with this Fallout TV show, some of the remarks coming from the individuals that are in charge of it made me a little sketchy about, the actual quality of the show. And the fact, again, that Amazon was dumping all of this at once kind of had me concerned. Then the reviews came and they were overwhelmingly positive, and I personally saw it myself, all 8 episodes, and I thought it was good. But the specific remark came from Jonathan Nolan. He talked about not really wanting to do any fan service or look out for the fans of the show. He just wanted to make a great Fallout show, and ultimately there was a ton of fan service, tons of little Easter eggs. They even incorporated like the Fallout 4 theme at one point, which worked extremely well. There was all kinds of stuff. The stim pack, you could hear the same noise that it makes in the games. Sugar bombs, Brahmin, there's a power armor station, all things that if you played the Fallout games, you're definitely going to recognize it. But with the actual show, I thought the VFX most of the time was pretty decent. There were a couple wonky bits, especially with like the costume design of the power armor. It just didn't exactly look that great to me. But the acting performances all around was pretty good. The ghoul Cooper Howard was great. I think Walton Goggins, I think that's his name, he portrays the character. He just does an amazing job bringing that character to life. And I think I really like the fact that all of these characters are deeply flawed. The Vault Dweller acts as essentially how you would expect they would be, since somebody who's lived their whole life there. I know some people had issues with her character, Lucy, but I think you see a natural evolution into somebody who just does not trust or care about anybody, especially with all of the stuff that happens throughout the Fallout show and all the side adventures that she ends up going on, or is forced into, I should say. But yeah, the comedy does work here. I thought that it really sticks to the tone of the Fallout games, and really this is probably one of the most authentic and faithful shows yet. The big problems I have with the Fallout show really have nothing to do with Amazon. I think the Amazon people in charge, Lisa Joy, Jonathan Nolan, and then there's a couple of different showrunners under them, I think that they've proven in the past, especially with Westworld, that's what Jonathan Nolan did in the past. That first or second season of Westworld, just top-notch, some of the best TV ever made. And they've proven they can really start off these shows strong. I don't know if that's going to continue with the Fallout show. But the problem with Fallout is really the background lore, stuff that I know Amazon didn't really have a say in. This is stuff that Bethesda decided themselves and probably wrote down the notes for them. And Todd Howard has talked about this as much in interviews. But first off, I know some people have been questioning, is the show even canon? It is. This is an interview that was given to Variety. Is the Fallout TV show canon? And Todd Howard said this, yeah, we view what's happening in the show as canon. That's what's great. When someone else looks at your work and then translate it in some fashion. It's a new story that comes sort of after the events we've seen in the games, co-showrunner said. The show is built on like 25 years of creativity and thinking and building, and we sort of thought about the best thing to do is to continue that versus retread it, because that's sort of what has worked with the Fallout over the years. It's traded hands, it's changed, it's been altered, and it's a living thing, and yeah, we kind of felt like we ought to take a swing at trying to build a new piece on top of all of that. Although it kind of goes back into that Bethesda finding your own family member trope that they kind of have had in like, I think 3 out of the 4 things that they've been involved in. Fallout 76 is like the only thing that kind of does its own thing, but it's Fallout 76, hardly a Fallout game in my opinion. But Fallout 3, you're trying to find your dad. Fallout 4, you're trying to find your son. And the Fallout TV show, you're again trying to find your dad. So I don't know. Does seem like they are retreading a little bit. I mean, there's different things happening with those stories, but regardless, that's not even a big issue here. But yeah, the Fallout show is canon, and it definitely feels like Bethesda's interpretation of a Fallout New Vegas 2. But the issue is, we've all been demanding a Fallout New Vegas 2 for so many years, but I don't think many people wanted that from Bethesda. And we've actually had hints in the past. This was coming from a journalist, I think it was, Jeff Grubb. He said that Fallout New Vegas 2 was actually being talked about at Microsoft. Now we know if there is a Fallout New Vegas 2, it sure as hell is not going to be taking place anywhere near New Vegas. It'll just be another spinoff, which may have already been a given, but I definitely think that if there is another spinoff coming from a different studio besides Bethesda, I almost guarantee that they're not going to be touching anything on the West Coast or anything near California, Nevada, any of those states in that vicinity. And at the time, Jeff Grubb, this was again about a year or so ago, 2022. This is very early, but people have begun to have talks and say these words in sentences, and those words are Obsidian and New Vegas 2. We're talking years and years away. There's at least an interest in conversations happening about making something like that actually a reality. A lot of people at Microsoft think that this could work, and there's a lot of interest to make it happen. And maybe Obsidian does make a spin-off, but they seem to be busy with all kinds of other, games in their own franchises. But it is worth mentioning that years before that, 2013, just about a year or two, or a couple of years after Fallout New Vegas, the CEO of Obsidian talked about their vision for a Fallout New Vegas 2 and what they would have done. I think it's of going from Fallout 1 to Fallout 2, we tried to associate the two areas somewhat closely. It wasn't just, we're going to do this 2,000 miles from here. So I think if we were to do Fallout New Vegas 2 or just a new Fallout, we would probably separate it from what the internal team at Bethesda is doing. We'd keep it on the West Coast because we're West Coast people. They're East Coast, so it makes sense. And we did an interesting confined area. So, it could be LA, Fallout LA. That could be interesting. It'd probably be the Boneyard, which is from Fallout 1. It could be very different. It could almost be a Walking Dead meets Fallout-like thing because of all the radiation. The problem is that Bethesda kind of just shut the doors on all of that. And it wasn't even like in any of the main stuff within the show. They did certain things with the background lore, especially with Shady Sands. This is actually an example of it. One example, they for some reason moved Shady Sands to Los Angeles, and the Boneyard is just completely gone, or it's not featured at all. Doesn't really make any sense, but to be fair, Fallout 1, I think in the timeline takes place like 50 or so years before the events of the TV show, so maybe it changed, but Shady Sands being all the way over here doesn't exactly make sense. I think that's one of the criticisms that I do have of the TV show. The geography it's messy. It really is. You see people walking and then they just it doesn't make sense with the previous lore that has been established. And and also some of the narrative decisions made around some of the factions is definitely causing some irritation, especially with the NCR. But there has been some theorizing that the show just may end up showing, their collapse and them ending up rising by the end. And maybe that's something that's finally explored in a Fallout 5, because it certainly seems like the reason why they're doing all of this is for, Fallout 5, maybe this is the precursor to Fallout 5. Maybe Fallout 5 takes place in San Francisco. Definitely seems like the next game could be placed on the West Coast with Bethesda leading development this time, and I know some people have some very torn feelings about that. But in the past, this is what Todd Howard said. Fallout Todd Howard addresses whether the TV series is really Fallout 5. I alluded to some of this, but our series sits in relation to the games as the games sit in relation to each other. It's almost like we're Fallout 5. I don't want to sound presumptuous, but it's just a non-interactive version of it, right? I think it would be very presumptuous for someone to assume that we'd reach the caliber of the games. He continues, saying to the Vanity Fair, it means you have all of the benefits of beautiful storytelling that Todd and Bethesda have contributed to, but we'd also get to tell an original story within the world. As writers and filmmakers, it's just a dream come true. I think we made Fallout 6, the showrunner said. We know all about Fallout 5. We're not telling anyone, Nolan adds facetiously. And they were told because Bethesda wanted them to avoid territory that they planned to tackle with Fallout 5. But right now, like I said, a lot of people are extremely pissed with some of the background lore that was established within the show. First off, it is worth mentioning that New Vegas is indeed still canon. Emil Pagliarello, who's one of the lead designers, developers on Fallout, said as much in a tweet, saying, of course it is, we've never suggested otherwise. There was a lot of confusion at first with the timelines and stuff that was established, but it gets clearer as we go through this video. I'll explain. But in this other post, this is the big thing that got everybody extremely upset. As you can see here, it says the fall of Shady Sands, 2277, and if you don't know, Fallout New Vegas takes place in 2281. So the confusion, the anger with that specifically is that Shady Sands would have had to fall in before New Vegas's events, and there's no mention of that within that game. The only thing I believe that was mentioned within New Vegas is that the NCR is starting to fall apart, or they're starting to collapse, but we never actually see a collapse, we just see mention of it. And then I believe in one of the endings of New Vegas, we see that the NCR holds on to power, but obviously based on the events of the show, that is not the direction or not the canon ending. But I think the confusion here is the fact that this nuke does not have a date in it. And this is a spoiler warning, but within the actual Fallout show, it is explained what happens. Shady Sands turns into like almost a civilized city of sorts. I think we see a train or something in a flashback. That was always one of the criticisms that so many people had for the Fallout series. Like, it's been 200 years. Why isn't there like an actual functioning, rebuilt city? And we do get to see that briefly, but Bethesda craps all over that with a nuke going off on it from a Vault Tech employee who was upset that his wife, I guess, left him and took his kids and didn't want them to live in the vault anymore. It's the TV show stuff. It works for the show, I suppose. But for the background lore and stuff, it's just a little bit of an irritation just because of what Shady Sands represented. And I think a lot of people would like to see, some of the parts of the Fallout world be built up, but it's just perpetual destruction that continues to happen with all cities, all everything in Fallout, and I guess that's just core to the DNA, unfortunately. But I think what's happening here is that the actual nuke that goes off, it probably goes off in like 2283, but the fact that it's not mentioned here has caused all kinds of confusion. And the fall of Shady Sands, I think that was the NCR's headquarters at the time. I think it's just more representation of the NCR starting to collapse, and I think that's when the fall begins, and then the nuke ends up going off a couple of years after that. But the show does a really bad job of explaining this. And New Vegas is canon, and then Emil Pagulero continued just pointing out the timeline. The bombs drop in 2077, 76, which nobody considers canon, 2102, I'm just joking. Fallout 1 in 2161, Tactics in 2197, Fallout 2, 2241, it goes on, and then the TV show ultimately takes place in 2296. So Fallout 5, I imagine, is probably going to take place a couple of years after the Fallout TV show, so it'll probably be the first one taking place in the 2300s, whenever that is. And again, the fact that Bethesda is giving notes for the TV show to avoid, it just makes me wonder if like San Francisco is going to be the next location for the next game. But specifically, I would say the big controversy really is the fate of New Vegas, and it comes from this clip. I can't really show many clips from the show, that's why you're not seeing many in the background, but I'll try to make this a little bit bigger. If you haven't seen the show, there's this very brief clip. I'll turn off the audio, there's just music, but yeah, it just shows New Vegas in the distance. But the issue with this clip is the fact that the New Vegas you see here, there's no lights on or anything, and everything just looks dusty. It looks destroyed. It looks abandoned. And then it leads many people to believe that Bethesda just crapped all over the lore that had been established by Obsidian with New Vegas. And then, hey, if you want a New Vegas too, I mean, there's not much there for them to do. But unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is that Fallout, the TV show season 2, if it does get approved, and I think there's already been hints that it did, they're probably going to have parts of New Vegas featured. I just don't know if I wanted Bethesda to really lean into this stuff. I don't know if Bethesda really can be trusted with creating lore for this. I think one of the big problems I have with modern day Bethesda is that their world building has been disastrous. I mean, you see some of that with Starfield. I'm not talking about like environments and stuff or exploration. I just mean factions and stuff. I think a lot of it, they've struggled deeply with it, and they've built off a lot of the lore that was established by other companies in the past. The Elder Scrolls is different, I would say, but specifically with Fallout, they just continue to retread on a lot of, we have Brotherhood of Steel again as the big bad faction or the main guys, because again, that's their marketing shtick. They love the Brotherhood. And then the Enclave is back based on the TV show, because I mean, it definitely felt like in the past couple Fallout games, the Enclave had been almost completely defeated. New Vegas, you just see a couple of remnants that, I mean, they just allude to the past. And then even in Fallout 4, there's a DLC in which you meet another remnant, but it felt like they were completely fractured or almost gone. But no, it does seem to be that they still are very much functioning in the Fallout TV show timeline of 2296, or right around there. And that's probably going to be something that's explored again in future seasons. But the controversy has been going widespread on social media and online. We have this tweet coming from somebody which has been community noted. In case you had any doubts, yes, that actually they retcon New Vegas. Bethesda is the DSP of game studios somehow, some way, despite making the dumbest decisions, they just keep going. And yeah, again, this points out the Emil Pagulero tweet that I just mentioned a bit ago. Another tweet saying Bethesda is literally never beating the insecure about New Vegas allegations, I fear. And I really do want to point out that specific point that a lot of people are bringing up. I definitely do think Bethesda is petty over the fact that a lot of people just absolutely adore New Vegas and consider it the best Fallout game. I definitely consider the top brass at Bethesda upset by that reaction, and I don't know if some of the narrative decisions that happened here were influenced by that, but I mean, a lot of people are definitely thinking that based on, what's been set up. And specifically, it is worth mentioning that Chris Avallone, one of the lead developers on Fallout New Vegas' DLC, he also wrote a little bit on the base game. He pretty much said as much. He was one of the lead head honchos at Obsidian for a while back then. He mentioned first in December 2023 that they proposed an Elder Scrolls game being, developed by Obsidian. Bethesda rejected it. And this is the tweet that got a lot of people like, oh, that's very interesting. He said that it didn't gain much traction. I never got the impression that Bethesda was happy with New Vegas' reception, good and bad. And the good would be, again, everybody absolutely loves Obsidian. They consider Fallout New Vegas the best game ever. The bad would be the fact that the game launched buggy and it had some problems at the beginning that a lot of people don't seem to mention nowadays. But yeah, it had an ugly launch. Another person saying, the show is set years after New Vegas. New Vegas takes place in 2281, 4 in 2287, and almost 10 years later, the Fallout series takes place in 2296. They didn't retcon shit. And that is a mention of this tweet, which has another one that has gone viral. I'll zoom out. It says, yes, they literally decided to erase the NCR completely at 2277. They didn't erase them, but they definitely have, they seem to be irrelevant by 2296. 4 years before New Vegas, then slowly New Vegas completely nuked at Fallout TV's end. And I don't think it was nuked. I think it's just been abandoned. You can see a lot of the fencing has been destroyed. I'm sure that's something that'll be explored in the next season. Definitely a little disappointed that we're getting this from Bethesda, and the fact that, again, everything that they, Obsidian did seems to be just dead now. But Bethesda literally retconned New Vegas out of spite in the TV show Episode 8, F Bethesda and Amazon Prime. This has almost 7,000 likes on it. And then somebody was joking with the fact that here's an exclusive look of the canon map for the next upcoming Elder Scrolls TV show. And yeah, this one's just joking. They got rid of Morrowind here. Another tweet saying, the Fallout show is good as a series, but lore-wise has wonky bits. It's annoying that the West Coast went back to square one. I got a feeling they're doing that to rebuild it again for the show, Rise of the NCR type thing. Still considering it a different timeline to 1-2 New Vegas. A lot of people are saying that, but it is, in Todd Howard's words, canon. Now again, some of the other tweets that we have here. Oh boy, I sure hope the Fallout Amazon TV show pays homage to the older Fallout games in New Vegas. Monkey Paw Curls. And yeah, a lot of people just extremely upset with Bethesda, the territory that they jumped into. Again, yeah, Shady Sands has been, yeah, it was nuked. Yeah, well, if it makes you makes you feel better, it didn't work out the city, and yeah, that's unfortunate. And for those wanting to explore Shady Sands again, that'll never be. And again, it is really interesting, the fact that they just seem to they put that back at where the boneyard is, and they just completely got rid of the boneyard. So definitely some weird stuff that they did with the geography that is not lore accurate. But again, I don't blame Amazon at all for that. That's more on Bethesda. We have other tweets. Shady Sands nuked, Enclave back, NCR is a raider gang now. LMFAO, Todd really effing hated New Vegas, huh? Also, spoilers don't matter because, yeah, this crap is not canon, no matter what him and his lover Emil say. And I will say the NCR that is featured within the show it does seem like a raider gang. At one point, they go to the observatory. There's some nice, tech that's, I'm not going to talk about the show's specific story elements, but within that, I think at one point you see that it says, like, NCR headquarters, so I assume that's just the last of the NCR. Maybe they end up, rebuilding as the show goes on, but right now it's kind of sad with what happened to them. But there definitely was hints of it in, New Vegas. I feel like another developer should have been the one to explore that, maybe not Bethesda, or just a TV show, in my opinion, especially with how beloved the NCR is. Another tweet we have here, can't wait to watch the Fallout show later today, and finally found out what happened to my favorite places such as the NCR New Vegas. Yeah, like I said, a lot of New Vegas fans just extremely pissed with how Bethesda handled all of this. Another tweet here saying Bethesda is so scared of moving the series identity past metal sheet houses and rusty shacks that they will actively go against prior entries in the series to keep the franchise's mass market appeal. And the last tweet I'll bring up is, again, Bethesda still seethes about New Vegas to the point they destroyed it in the Fallout show. And besides that clip I showed earlier, during the end credits, they actually do show more pictures of New Vegas, and it shows that, again, the NCR is destroyed, New Vegas Vegas seems to be in ruins or it's abandoned. There's no electricity or anything on. And if you compare this to the marketing material of New Vegas, again, it looks decrepit, which is it's a choice that Bethesda made here, and one that is proven to be controversial. And a lot of people, again, just saying they do not trust Bethesda or understand the decision making that they've done here. But there's all kinds of different things controversial about this show. We have some people doing, I guess you could say, funny stuff with the lead character. This one I just find so dumb, quick and dirty, but that flatness bothered me enough. And people just pointing out that not every game character or individual has to look like that. But like I said, the gaming community never proves to be normal. They'll never just be normal. We always have stuff like this, so I find this funny. But yeah, this person's being ratioed, quoted to death because people are saying that that's not every woman needs to look like this. But anyway, what did you make of the Fallout TV show? I gave my thoughts on it. I thought it was a pretty good entry. I thought it worked pretty well. The background lore, I think you can separate that and just be upset with the direction that Bethesda is taking the franchise and be critical of it. I think those two things don't intertwine. But yeah, what do you make of all this? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.